Today we're going to be going over lazy eights. This is a commercial maneuver. We're going to go over the what, why, and how of it. Honestly, I don't like lazy eights at all. I'd rather do a chandelle than a lazy eight. What is it? So it's a figure eight climbing and descending maneuver while in a bank. Figure eight shape, climbing and descending maneuver while in a bank. Why we do it? I always say this for every single maneuver, but control and coordination. Any maneuver we do is going to challenge our control and coordination with the airplane because it's not something that we normally do just in normal cruise flight. So it is testing us and making us better pilots with our control and coordination. Division of attention is another one because you're looking outside while division of attention is another one because we're looking outside. It's to look for our reference points and to kind of see how our nose is cutting through the horizon, but we're also looking inside at our instruments to make sure that we're completing the maneuver within standards and just making sure that what we're seeing outside is true to what's being shown on the instruments. It teaches the overbanking tendency of the plane. The overbanking tendency, when our plane is in a bank, this wing that's higher is creating more lift and more thrust. So this wing is moving faster. Both these wings are completing the turn in the same amount of time. So one wing isn't coming in behind the other when we're making a turn. They're finishing the turn at the same time. This wing is traveling a further distance because it's on the outside. So further and shorter. And that means that it has to move faster to complete the turn in the same amount of time, even though it's traveling a further distance than the other wing. So what happens is because we're generating more lift and more thrust, the plane wants to continue to bank in that direction that it's already banking. So in this maneuver, we're actually letting the plane overbank. So steep turns, the plane is going to want to bank and continue to overbank, but we're not going to let it because we're already in such a steep turn that we don't want to let it overbank and get too steep of a bank. But with this maneuver, we're starting with a really shallow bank and then we're letting that plane bank on its own. So now we're going to get into the how of the maneuver. So a lazy eight is a 180-degree turn, and we have to do a lazy eight to both directions. So when we do a chandelle, we typically only do one to the left, and that is also a 180-degree turn, but lazy eights, you have to do one to the left and then to the right. So first off, what we want to do is do our pre-maneuver checklist. So we want to do our clearing turns. We want to make our radio calls. If there's any, we want to get the plane configured for the maneuver and then get our altitude and airspeed set. So what I like to do first is get the plane trimmed for straight and level. So straight and level. Make sure your airspeed below your maneuvering speed. So my plane on my check ride day, I think it was like 101 when I solved for maneuvering speed. So we're in straight and level, our airspeed is below maneuvering speed. Now we want to be straight and level at a good altitude. So we are climbing in this maneuver, but then we're descending back down to our altitude. So like chandelles, you can start fairly low to the ground because it's just a climbing maneuver. And you're going to end up at a higher altitude. But this, you might want to pick something a little bit higher. So maybe like 4,000 feet. MSL, and we're straight and level at 4,000 feet. Our airspeed is below VA. Now what we want to do is find our reference points. So when I do this maneuver, I only pick one reference point off of the wing in the direction that I'm turning. So let's say we're doing one to the left. I'm going to look out my left window and I'm going to look for something that's off of my wing that's really easy to see. So let's say that we see a few smokestacks and they have smoke coming out and I can easily see those. So I'm going to get my wing lined up with those smokestacks. So we want a reference point. And then once you get your wing lined up with that reference point and you're flying straight and level, you're going to want to bug your heading. That way you can use your reference point by looking outside to see if you've completed that 180-degree turn, but you can also cross-check with your heading bug inside and see that's where I started. Okay, I want to be down here at a 180-degree point. So now once we have all of that set up, our power should be already set at normal cruise power because we're straight and level, but we're going to leave it at 2350 RPMs or whatever your normal cruise RPM setting is. And we're not going to touch the power in this maneuver. It's just a normal cruise power maneuver. Now we're going to go ahead and get into the maneuver now that we're all set up. So this is the setup, and now we're getting into the maneuver. So first you're going to bank 5 degrees. Then you're going to pitch for 15 degrees. Everyone teaches it a little bit different. Some people might tell you like pitch for 15 to 20 or pitch for 12 or whatever, but I bank 5 degrees and I pitch for 15. Now that we are pitched up so high and we're in a little bit of a bank, the plane is going to want to continue to overbank. So we're going to let the plane overbank. So in this situation, if you're one of those like people who like death grips the controls, what I do is I take my hand off the throttle. That way I'm not messing with the throttle at all. I'm not bumping the power up or down because that will mess up your maneuver. I put both hands on the yoke and I just like lightly hold the yoke. That way when you're in your bank, I mean, you're going to have to hold back pressure to keep that nose at 15 degrees, but just hold really lightly. That way you're not holding the plane and stopping it from overbanking. You want to let it overbank. And once we get to around the 45-degree, when we reach this point, we want to have our max pitch up attitude. So we should really be holding that 15 degrees. We're pitching up and our bank is still increasing as we're still completing the first 90 degrees of our maneuver. So let's just say that our bank's at around 15 degrees now. So we started at 5. We're now at the 45-degree point of our turn, which is a quarter of the way done with the turn. And now our bank's at around 15 and we're in a max pitch up attitude. Then we get to the 90-degree point, and from the 45 to the 90 degree, we're just doing the same thing. We're just holding that pitch in and letting the plane overbank. So then we get to this 90-degree point and our airspeed is going to be at its minimum because at this point we've been pitching up the whole time and the plane's also been banking, so we've been losing our lift and pitching up. Our airspeed is slowed down, so our airspeed is at its minimum that it's going to be the whole maneuver. We are at our max altitude because now we are halfway through our maneuver. So the first half of the maneuver is a climbing and the second half is descending. So now we're going to be at our max altitude that we will be at for the whole entire maneuver. And let's just say our bank should be around 30 degrees of bank. So now this is like our max bank that we're going to be at also. So max altitude, max bank, and our airspeed is at its minimum. Then our next point is a 135-degree point. So once we reach this 90-degree point is when the descent comes in. So we have the bank in and we're pitched up. But as soon as we see our reference point, so since we picked our reference point off our wing, when our nose is on our reference point, that's when we're going to be at the 90-degree point. So when we see that reference point out in front of us, or we look at our heading bug and we see that we're 90 degrees past, that's when we're going to want to let the nose fall. So we're going to just let the nose fall slowly. You don't need to just shove it down. Slowly let the pitch come out, and we're going to pitch around like -5 on our attitude indicator. So 30 degrees of bank, now you're descending at about -5 on your attitude indicator. And the goal is this next 90 degrees of the turn that you descend back down to your starting altitude. You don't go any lower and you're not any higher by the time you roll wings level at the 180 degree point. So it takes some little adjustments. So let's say that you are descending pretty quickly and you feel like you're going to lose too much altitude. Maybe you take out a little bit of your bank, or you pick your nose up a little bit. Or if you're not descending fast enough, maybe you put your nose down. So you're just gonna have to cross check with like outside and your instruments and kind of use your best judgment to see how the maneuver is going. So then we get to our 135 degree point, and we should be in a max pitch down attitude. So at this point in the turn, we should be pitching down, and past this point in the maneuver, our bank or our pitch should not go further than what it's at right now. And our bank should be around 15 degrees. I find naturally that like I don't even have to think about the bank, but as I'm descending and I'm like still doing my turn, just naturally the bank kind of reduces, and like I'm end up being at around 15 degrees of bank. So max pitch down altitude, bank 15 degrees, and then we get to our 180 degree point, which is when we finish the maneuver. And from here to here, again, we're just doing the same thing. So we are pitched down. From here, we can pull the nose up if we're descending too fast, or we can take out more bank if we're descending too fast. But now we're just focusing on looking for our 180 degree point. So now our reference point that we picked at the beginning is going to be off of our right wing. So we should be looking outside of our right window, looking for that reference point, and also looking at our heading indicator, see when we reach that 180 degree point. When we get to this point, we're rolling wings level, and we're picking the nose up and putting it back on the horizon very slowly. We're not going to yank it up, but rolling wings level, picking the nose up, and we should be around our starting altitude. So we should be in level flight, starting altitude, and starting airspeed. And what I like to do is look outside. If everything goes kind of to plan and all of your inputs have been correct and are working good, then when you see your point coming up off your wing and when you see your heading indicator coming close to your 180 degree point, your altitude also is going to be getting close to your starting altitude. So when I am about 200 feet from my starting altitude, I roll my wings level and then pick the nose up slowly. If you roll wings level right at your starting altitude, you're probably going to descend past it. So I roll wings level about 200 feet before, and then that kind of gets me to my 180 degree point and gets me to my starting altitude. So, and then after that, you have normal cruise power in, and you're at a safe altitude, because if we start at 4,000 feet, then you should be ending at 4,000 feet. So we're not near the ground or anything. We don't need to climb out and get out of the maneuver. So we just now re-enter straight and level flight. So that is our lazy eights.